There's never enough time to talk about all the possibilities here. So let's sort of move forward into this. They're going to work their way into some sort of playoff scenario, Jalen, assuming they can get back and play. What should that look like when they get to 16 teams to play in the playoffs, or 20 to use your plan? What should it look like? What's the best way to decide an NBA champion?
I would love to engage 20 total teams. If I have enough time, I'll do a play-in. If I don't have enough time, I will have it be 10 seeded in each conference, period, and start the playoffs. That would provide a easing into the season, almost like preseason and exhibition games, as it should for the top seeds playing against the 1 seed playing against a 10 seed, for example. Also, 1 through 16 if you can. They don't have to travel cross country, Jay and Greeny. We need to create more intrigue for the fans. We need to engage more fan bases. We need to see something we have never seen. We would love to see Luka, Ja, Dame Lillard, Zion Williamson. Is John Wall going to come back for the Washington Wizards? By engaging more teams and having a 1 through 16 seeding, you get a chance to see matchups we would never see.
Yeah, let's be clear on what we're talking about there, Jay. Will, we brought this up earlier this week here, and that is I have long been campaigning for the NBA when they get to their 16 playoff teams just to seed them 1 through 16. They break them up East versus West, in part because that's the tradition and the history of the sport, but I think more practically because travel is an issue. Well, it isn't an issue when they're all playing and living in the same place. So would you like to see them do away with that and just put the best teams where they are and play it out?
Well, I think, Greeny, if there's 1 year to do it as an experimental year, it would be this year, and the year that you would have a pandemic. And then I think you would gather all those data points about what the pros and cons of the situations were after you were able to complete the season, and then think about whether you want to incorporate that into the future settings of the league. I think that is the way to do it. Now, I know you can do traditional Eastern Conference, Western Conference, but I think, this year has already been so drastically different. We've had 2.5 months off from basketball. If we're going to do this, even if you do 20 teams, you do a play-in game, you create that mystique, that excitement leading into the playoffs. But that would just be, I would be glued to my television if I got a chance to see those type of matchups, 1 through 16, just regular seeding based upon what your record was, and let's determine a true champion. Let's just not, I would love to see if it maps up that way. The Lakers, if we're saying that the Lakers, people, general consensus, right? I think the Milwaukee Bucks are one of the best teams in basketball, but I've heard a lot of people say it's the Lakers and the Clippers and then everybody else. Okay, so if we're going based upon that perspective, then let's find a way to get the Lakers and the Clippers to match up in the World Championship. Let's see the 2 best teams match up in the World Championship, just not be a team that comes out of the Eastern Conference or teams that come out of the Western Conference if they're that loaded.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
We all see that the same way. Now, Jalen, let me throw something at you here. And I'm thinking back to a conversation Jay Williams and I had one of the last days that we were at the Seaport before, everything had to cease. And I was suggesting that I think there's a team everyone in the Eastern Conference is overlooking. And when our mutual friends at First Take the other day, Jalen, asked me to pick a team that I think could win the championship this year, I said Boston. And I'll tell you why. They have 3 different players on their team who average 20 points a game. 2 of them are very young. They have 10 players on their team who average double-digit minutes per game. I love the way they're coached, and I think that they have a superstar waiting to happen in Jayson Tatum, who, if this season had played itself out, I think would have played himself into significant discussion in the MVP race. So if I'm looking for a team, the Lakers and the Clippers are everybody's pick. Jalen Rose, if I'm looking for another team to watch, I'm watching Boston.
Actually, I agree with you, Greeny, and for those of us in the know, that's not that's not a long reach, and here's why. The Milwaukee Bucks, while I respect Chris Middleton, people are still trying to wonder if he's going to be the second best player on the team that can win the East and win the championship. I love how the Raptors, the defending world champion Toronto Raptors, led by Pascal Siakam, continue to outplay expectations. Nick Nurse is my coach of the year. Boston sits right there. Based on all of the things you said, plus they got a young superstar in Jayson Tatum, and I love the all-star in Kemba Walker, and they have a Jalen on their squad, so you got to think that they have a chance to do something great.
What do you think, Jay? Well, I was trying to talk you into Boston, I feel like, all season long before everything had to sort of go by the wayside, hopefully temporarily. What do you think?
No, I think Boston is one hell of a team, and I do love all their wings. Jay Rose, you and I got into this multiple times, and I think we both came to agreement on NBA Countdown, where we said that the one question mark that you have for Boston is that, if the game were to slow down, like, who would be that enforcer that they would have inside the paint that would be able to have some kind of intimidation? Like, Robert Williams was hurt. Enes Kanter could be that guy, maybe isn't that guy at times. Like, that's always been the one question mark. I love their guard play, but that front line was something that was questionable. That's the only thing I think, Greeny, that would hinder them from winning a world championship.
This is the kind of conversation I want to be having as we work our way forwards. I'm tired of talking about contracts. Let's talk about basketball and all these other games getting back on the fields and on the courts. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.